This is a disclaimer for the podcast. Please be mindful and respectful of everyone's opinion on and off the podcast. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the podcast are solely the speaker's own and not IW's. The podcast may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to suicide, abuse, violence, severe mental illness, incarceration, drugs, and poverty. This podcast is meant as a learning opportunity for everyone involved, and opinions expressed can change at any time. Thank you, and please enjoy the podcast.
So on top of that, I feel like we really need to talk about racial injustice. Kevin brought it up, and I really think it's a major issue on why most people of color are in, juveniles and in jail. So I really want us to talk more about racial injustice and profiling. What do you guys think about that? Do you think it's actually a real issue? And I liked how Kevin said that there's a lot of people of color in jail, not because of the crimes they committed, but because of the racial injustice. How do you think that can be fixed? And more opinions on that?
Well, I think racial profiling is a major issue in the United States. From Black people to Asians to Mexicans. First of all, they have names for us. They say, Black women are loud, they get angry quick. And Black men, they say Mexicans are lazy. They say, Asians are so smart. They just look at them in brackets. They don't see them as actual people. So when a crime does happen and they were to say, a Black man passed by, he will be the first person to be caught and probably not even taken to jail. Will probably be gunned down right there with no one even knowing who he was. If he even committed the crime, he was probably just walking. Little kids, little Black kids can be holding a toy gun just playing around. They'll be gunned down. But there are white men walking around with guns actually shooting people. But they're taken to court. There's a fair trial going on. And you wonder, why does that happen? Why do we have to be held down on the ground when we have nothing on us?
Okay, yeah. That's very interesting that you said that. I really feel like racial injustice and racial profiling is a major and pressing issue. Like you said, if there was a crime to be committed and, let's say a Black man was seen walking, he would be, number one suspect. And, in a lot of cases, I feel like, since I think 2020 is when I started seeing the real racial injustice cases going up. And it was hard to understand. And I'm thinking, do you think it's the police that need education? The police who are causing all these racial injustices? Or is it the community? Or is it the parents? Is it us, the people, who is supposed to be accountable to racial injustices?
I believe everybody should be held accountable to this. We must all perceive everybody as equal. We all have equal rights. We all must have an equal justice system. So everybody in the community must be held accountable to this. The police and their jobs, teachers in schools, government officials, in their mandates. We all must be responsible for how we treat young people. Now, I believe that what ails us today, mostly up there, is biased and unjust systems that are actually meant to deprive youth of color.
Right.
So we've got to amend and get rid of this biased and unjust policies that are put there, that are framed to exactly deprive youths of color of an equal right and equal opportunity.
I really like the fact that you brought up about changing the system as well. Like you said, the system was meant to favor the white man. So do you think it's gonna be a long time until the system is changed? Do you think the days are coming for the system to be changed? Like, what do you think? When do you think the system will be changed?
This is the time to actually change the system. This is where we must start. Like I said earlier, in 2020, as our deputy, we had the mission to traverse the road to zero youth incarceration, and here we are today. And now we're talking of King County closing the detention center. So this very critical changes in society must start now. As our deputy, we must have our voices coming out clearly that we cannot, we can no longer tolerate injustices, racial injustice. We must all have an equal right. We cannot tolerate racial profiling anymore. So we must fuel a society that is based upon laws and policies that are equally objective, that sees us all as equal. All right, but it's also important to address the individual needs of certain communities. So we must have our schools with systems that are objectively addressing the needs of a black youth in this society, or an Asian youth in this society. Even as we talk of totally attaining a society that is free of all these injustices, racial injustices.
Okay. I don't know if we touched based on this, but I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Kevin brought up the fact that IDEPI does a lot for, speaking up for, the racial injustices. Do you think there's some other ways that IDEPI does to speak up for racial injustice? Are there ways that you could think of? Are there ways that you could, bring forth to implement so that we can still keep, speaking up?
Yeah, I do. I think IDEPI is doing a good job actually interacting with different cultures from different areas. That brings out the diversity in us, and also we get to share a lot from our communities even if you're not based from here, we actually can borrow ideas and make something unique like IDEPI. I like the movement that they're doing by just bringing young people together and actually focus on this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really feel like, being part of IDEPI has taught me a lot of things. I've been able to learn how to speak up for, my community.
Yeah.
I've learned how to speak up and use my voice as, a tool, a powerful tool. Because like Kevin said, he said that, our voices are so important.
Yeah.
The only way for the system to change is if we speak up, if we use our voices, if we don't let, oppression gets to us. Me and Ashley were talking about how if you walk into a room where there's oppression, the oppression must
fear you.
Must fear you. Like oppression must fear you. If oppression don't fear you, if you are walking into an incarceration center and there's no then you're doing something wrong. Like you're supposed to speak up. Like you're supposed to do something about it. And I feel like IDEPI does a good job in that.
Yeah.
Like, we're speaking up, against oppression and a lot more things. And that's why I think IDEPI does a good job in.
Yeah.
You can add on to that.
I think so too. I think we bring about a lot of change, and we're going to keep doing that. And we love all the ideas that we get from people. And I think from what we all said, when you decide to take a stand against the system, you have to do it loudly, because if you don't speak for yourself, the system will speak for you, as we have been seeing.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared to fight. And as she said, when you walk into a room against oppression, it has to fear you, because if it does not fear you, then that means you're not doing something right. You have to work harder, and we do have to work harder.
Right.
Because people worked hard for us to be here, and we have to work hard for the 7 generations that are going to be ahead of us.
Yep.
I'm glad how you say we should speak loudly. That is so key, because I feel like, you can't just be in a corner speaking up and think, people will hear you.
Yeah.
Because these people are louder than us.
Keeping in mind, the young people
The
might
system
be,
is very loud.
might be maybe few in population, 30%, but we're totally 100% of the future.
Yes.
So we should consider that.
Yeah, we need to be loud because they said this is the land of the free. We all belong. This is in the First Amendment. Civil rights movements fought for us. So why should we be quiet? Why should we be in a little corner saying, oh, I see that this happened, this needs to change? Why not stand up, go and change it, make an impact instead of waiting for things to change for you?
Right. Okay. I'm going to sidetrack a little bit. So we are talking about ending incarceration centers.
Yeah.
That's such a, if we end incarceration centers and bring forth this diversion programs, that's such a major change for the incarcerated youth. What are some advice would you give for someone who's experiencing change, someone who was, oppressed, is experiencing a new system? What are some advice you would give for someone who's experiencing change like that?
I can say, the first advice I'll try, and which might be difficult for them, it's like finding someone to speak, maybe just someone you can communicate to, even if not directly, maybe just write a note to try find a way of communicating or coming out. And we as IDEP, we are creating that opportunity for some. I know a lot of people are out there trying to come out. They can't just come out with people who are around them because they will be victimized or something, you know.
Okay, good.
So they'll try to reach out to somewhere places they'll get help. And